Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Battle Report for the channel, and today in this 17 threat match we're seeing some more of the newly updated character cards which are available for free as a PDF on the Atomic Mass Games website, presumably to be released down the line as physical copies, and it's going to be the X-Men versus the Midnight Suns. So here is the 17th threat of X-Men. They're going to be led by Scott, aka Cyclops today, so his X-Men Blue affiliation for the Uncanny X-Men is kicking in, which I think is different now in his new card. It is when an allied character deals damage to an enemy character with an attack, another allied character within range 5 of the attacking character, bit of a vocal spaghetti there, and gains 1 power. So it's a bit more power gain to go around. He's joined by Storm. Her card has also been updated as well. Colossus has had quite significant changes. It's a medium move for a start. And then they're bringing along Honey Badger and Emma Frost. Emma Frost is completely unchanged, Honey Badger is completely unchanged. The other three though, we'll get to see them doing their stuff with their newly updated cards. And their tactics cards, speaking of cards, to me my X-Men, Jonathan the Unstoppable, Children of the Up and At Them, First Class and Headmistress. And a little bit shrouded in darkness for some reason. It's weird because it shouldn't be with the lighting where it is, but the Midnight Suns, I guess it fits their theme. The Midnight Suns have only 4 miniatures because Immortal Hulk is here, it's hard to miss him. So he's taking up a lion's share of the threat value, being led by Blade though with his updated card. We talked about updated Blade last time and his Bump in the Night affiliation bonus. Joining him are Iron Fist and Moon Knight. Neither of them have been updated, neither is Immortal Hulk, he didn't get nerfed or anything. Probably should, maybe just a little smidge. But either way, Blade is the only one changed on this side, and their tactics cards, if we just come down here a little bit, Smash, One Below All, Siege of Darkness, Brace for Impact and Gamma Drain. And here are the 2 Crisis cards being played this time, and this will be the last time having to see these rubbish printouts that I made because the card pack is on its way and was able to pick it up for a fair price. So Struggle for the Cube as the Extraction and Riot Sparks over Extremist 3.0 as the Secure, so there is lots of objective markers on the table. This is the 5 Cosmic Cube Fragments, you can pick them up. You take 1 damage for each one you're holding though, but you also gain power for it as well. So it's a kind of give or take, and you use map F for them. And map D for the Extremist consoles, that's 4 consoles, you can pay 1 power to interact with them to heal 1 damage from any character within 2. Or from a non-dazed character, yeah, so any character within 2 that's not dazed. So, all the objectives on the table. We have the 4 Extremist consoles kind of at the compass points, and then we have the cluster of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cube fragments right there. So we are all set up and good to go. The Uncanny X-Men are to your screen left and the Midnight Suns are to your right. The Midnight Suns will be taking first activation if they wish, though they do have a pass because they've got 4 miniatures to the Uncanny X-Men's 5. Up to them if they want to take advantage of it or not. We can take a quick look where they are. Moon Knight is down there on his lonesome. Immortal Hulk is, well, it's hard to miss him. Blade and Iron Fist are over there. And then for the X-Men, Storm is kind of by herself down in this corner. Then we have Cyclops next to Honey Badger, and then Emma next to Colossus up there. And First Class is being played, so we're just going to cover that right now because it's a turn 1 play. At the start of an activation phase, so technically it's not right now, but again we're just covering it now because it's going to be used. An allied Uncanny X-Men character can play this card. Each Uncanny X-Men character does not have to spend power the first time they interact with an objective token. So they will be picking up cube fragments for free this turn. Oh, well, the Uncanny X-Men amongst them anyway. I'm not 100% sure Honey Badger is. We need to check that if she's going to pick one up. But either way, let's jump into round 1. A lot of points on offer each turn, with 5 for the cube fragments, 4 for the Extremist consoles. So it could end up a bit of a slaughter, but it will depend on how badly Immortal Hulk kicks off. So this might be a bit of a surprise first activation, but the Midnight Suns did activate, and they activated Immortal Hulk. He hasn't changed in any way, which I think we mentioned when we went over the sides. He moved up small with his gigantic base, and then moved again just within 1 of the central cube fragment and paid 1 of his 3 power to pick it up. He then spent another of his 3 power on Bump in the Night to shove himself back in range 1 to put him within 2, or within 1 actually because of how big his base is, of the Extremist console behind him there. So it is a little bit weird to do kind of like a defensive turn with Hulk, but having that middle cube fragment might give them the swing for the first round, and it means if he's next to the console at the top of the next turn, he can interact with it to heal the power, the damage that the cube fragment is going to do to him, which kind of just counters itself out because the cube fragment damage will give him 1 power. So possibly a good turn, possibly not. We'll see how it plays out. First up for the Uncanny X-Men was the new and improved Colossus, because our boy did need some updates. In fact, the X-Men in general did. So Colossus is a medium move now, as I think we already mentioned, and that on its own is a pretty significant change for him. He moved up and got within one of the Extremist console over on the left there, but not before picking up the Cube Fragment on the way for free because of First Class. As far as other changes for him, his organic skin now also makes him immune to being pushed, which is another really powerful little effect from there. He can still be placed, mind controlled, etc., but he can't be pushed, which is also very in character. So it's just a couple of little things, but it makes him feel much more like he's worth his threat cost. It was right back to the Uncanny X-Men as the Midnight Suns opted to use their pass. So Storm activated, she moved her medium next to the Cube Fragment on this side of the table, again picked her up for free because of First Class, and then moved just within one of the Extremist console on the opposite edge of the table from where Colossus is. So for the Midnight Suns, no passes available now. They activated Moon Knight, and he moved up medium around the rocks there to pick up the Cube Fragment that had been lodged between the rocks and the Daily Bugle stand there for 1 power. Oh, he rolled a blank for his personality, which means he gets a free power, so he used that to pick up the cube. Then for his other action, he simply moved medium to contest this console against Storm. Scott activated next for the Uncanny X-Men. No Cube Fragments left on this side of the table either, there's only one on the opposite end. He moved up, he didn't do a full medium move, he just got up far enough that he was within range 1 of the Extremist console here, the very shiny Extremist console, there we go. And if he'd done a full move, he still wouldn't have been within range 4 of Immortal Hulk to take a shot at him, thanks to him bumping in the night back the way. So he's actually just burning his other action, doing nothing. He's staying within 1 to hold that console for this turn, because he doesn't want Immortal Hulk getting the jump on him next turn first. Let him come to him is the plan. It was a stereotypical turn 1 for Iron Fist next, doing 2 medium moves in order to contest an objective, picking up that last Cube Fragment on the way for one of his 2 powers. So he's over here facing against Colossus, meaning that those 2 consoles on either edge are currently offering up no points because it's a draw for both sides. All cubes are in other people's possessions though, so those are scoring for sure. So now it's over to Honey Badger or Emma Frost, and then back over to Blade as the final Midnight Suns activation. Well, of those 2 it was Emma Frost to activate, choosing to abandon Cyclops, which presumably she also did in the comics after he went full fascist. I don't know, I haven't kept up with him. Either way, moved twice over here behind the Daily Bugle stand a little bit for a little bit of cover in case Blade decides to try and throw glaives at her or anything, but definitely picking this side of the table to be the one that she wants to try and fight on. Well, Blade opted to hedge his bets, moving twice to get him to where you see him there. He wasn't close enough to get within range 1 of the Extremist console where Iron Fist is, so he couldn't help swing that to their side. So he's placed himself kind of near the middle, so he can pick which side to help next turn. And with that, it is over to Honey Badger to end off the round. And a simple enough activation for Honey Badger because of plans to place Jonathan next turn probably. She moved up next to Cyclops, just chilling there next to that Extremist console. And that is it, let's go to scoring. So as expected at the end of Battle Round 1, it was the 5th Cube Fragment that swings the points for the round. The Midnight Suns have 3 Cube Fragments and 1 console. They're holding the one with Immortal Hulk at the back there, so they gained 4 VP. The Uncanny X-Men have the other 2 Cube Fragments, and they also only hold the one Extremist console because each on either side of a table are a draw between 2 healthy characters. So they have 3. So the Midnight Suns are ahead by 1 victory point as we go into round 2, but the Uncanny X-Men are taking first activation. Also, everyone who's holding a Cube Fragment at this point during the cleanup phase now takes 1 damage and gains 1 power. So to get Battle Round 2 started, the Uncanny X-Men had a lot of choices, but they eventually picked Colossus, and he clearly chose Violence because of the Cube Fragment he's holding. He had enough power to do X-Slam, which just does a stun by default. If he gets a wild, it also does a stagger. But it also did two poor Iron Fist 4 of his 5 health. So it stunned, staggered, and put him within an inch of his, well, dazed condition. So then Colossus just did a follow-up strike, also within range 2. In both cases, Iron Fist was counting blanks as successes, but that did not help. He only got 1 damage through on his basic strike, but that is enough that Iron Fist is actually dazed and will not be activating this turn. He dropped his Cube Fragment, and that meant Colossus had a choice because he gained 1 power from the strike. Does he use that to pick up the second Cube Fragment, or does he use that to heal for 1 on the Extremist console? And in the end, he opted to pick up the Cube Fragment, presuming that whatever Blade can dish out at him, he can take, which I guess we'll see. Oh, sorry, totally forgot that Iron Fist had 1 damage on himself already because he was holding that cube fragment at the end of the turn, meaning that Colossus couldn't have done the strike, and nor did he need to. That was enough to daze him as is, which means he doesn't have enough power to pick up the cube fragment or use the console. So the cube fragment that Iron Fist held is now just being put there, and for his second action, Colossus just moved a little bit to it to body block it a little bit, so if Blade wants to snatch it, he's going to have to walk around him to get within range 1. So a little mistake there, but we caught it early enough. Everything else happened as is. Moon Knight activated first for the Midnight Suns, rolling another blank for his multiple personality skill, meaning he gained another power, which meant he had enough to blow it all on Avatar of Khonshu. He used it into Storm. It involves a place within one of the target, a forced one, and an optional push, I think on damage, but he opted not to do it either way because he didn't want to be further from the Extremist console. He managed to do 3 damage to her there. He chose violence, but not nearly as much as when he then chose to use his bow staff, which you can reroll all dice on. It's only 4 dice physical. But he managed to do 3 with that as well, and Storm only had 1 health left because of the 1 damage she took from having a cube fragment at the end of the last turn with that 3 damage added on. So she dazed, and then he was in the position that we thought Colossus was in. Do you spend the 1 power he gained from that basic bow staff strike on healing himself for 1 or picking up the cube fragment Storm dropped? And in this instance he chose to pick up the cube fragment. So Moon Knight is currently holding on to 2 of them. Whether that's still the case shortly with Emma Frost so dangerously close, we'll see. Cyclops activated for the Uncanny X-Men, and although it looks like he hasn't moved at all, he actually did. He moved up medium round the corner to go after Blade because 1 medium move wouldn't put him within range 3 of Moon Knight, and Moon Knight has stealth, so he couldn't go after him really. At which point he spent 2 power. Oh, by the way, he has 1 extra power because he was within range 5 when Colossus dealt damage. He paid for hit and run, which means he gets to do a move action after an attack action. He did his basic optic blast, which now has a new trigger on it. If you get a wild, it still does the push. If you get a wild and a hit, it has a new roll called Speed of Sight, which means he gets to attack again. It's essentially rapid fire on a double trigger. So all the dice rolls have actually been fantastic for both sides so far, very above average. He did really well with his initial roll against Blade, got 3 on him, and it's an energy attack, so he can't pay for supernatural senses to reroll any of his defense dice. And he did get the trigger for Speed of Sight, and it does trigger before the move of hit and run. So he did another one. That one only did 1 damage, so Blade at least will get a turn if he activates quick. And after that, Scott moved back to the Extremist console back here just to get away from danger. Blade was up for the Midnight Suns and actually had a pretty decent turn. He started by paying 1 for Bump in the Night, which poked his head back round that corner there so you could see Honey Badger. He then chucked some throwing glaives at her. He got the bleed proc and he got the pursuit proc on it, and it was actually 4 successes he rolled. And he managed to do 3 damage because she only blocked 1 of them, so that was most of her health gone right there, plus the bleed condition, plus he was allowed to be placed within 1 of her, which meant he was within safe distance that Cyclops couldn't do quick draw, so he paid for Night of the Damn Fear on Cyclops, but Honey Badger decided to get down Mr. President Cyclops and paid 2 for Too Dangerous to Ignore, so she became the target of Night of the Damn Fear and took 6 more damage. So she is very dazed, pardon the shiny angle at which we're here, but she is very much dazed, and when he ended his turn, he is still healing 1 and getting 1 power for her having bleed, at least is our understanding, because special effects get taken away as part of the cleanup phase when you flip their card, etc. So even though she dazed, she was still bleeding. So he did at least heal 1, but his goal was to put bleed on both of them to heal 2. And he's not within 1 of the console from where he is. So not super ideal, but still, every attack for both sides has been really, really stellar so far. So it was down to Emma Frost this turn for the Uncanny X-Men, and she had a lot of choices. Does she go after Blade? But that doesn't really help anything because he's not currently contesting, he's not holding an objective, he is putting pressure on for sure, but he's not really that useful in terms of scoring points. Moon Knight though is outside of range 3 of her, so that means she couldn't see him because of his stealth, same problem Cyclops would have been having. So she's played Headmistress to start her activation. It seems like it can be used on herself. It is one of her cards for Uncanny X-Men. During Emma Frost activation, she can spend power to play this card. For each power spent, an allied Uncanny X-Men character that is not holding an objective can advance medium. You presumably count as an allied character to yourself. She is Uncanny X-Men affiliated, so she paid 1 and did move medium because she's holding nothing, which put her right up in Moon Knight's face. However, The 2 psionic bolts she did didn't exactly work out. This is the roll for her first psionic bolt, 3 skulls, 2 blanks, which he obviously didn't need to defend against. This is the second one, that did better, got 3 wilds, needs a wild and a hit to do the forced move for the record, although I can't remember if Moon Knight's immune to being forced to move because of his mental issues. Either way, she did 3, and his defense roll was 3 successes. For the record, the crits didn't convert to any successes, but that doesn't matter, because that is enough that Emma Frost's activation was utterly wasted, and Moon Knight just stands there laughing in mental illness. So Mortal Hulk is the final activation of round 2 thanks to all the daisies that have been happening, and he's abandoned his post. He is not holding an objective over there. He wants to go do the violence. So he moved small in this general direction. He paid 3 for Gamma Leap to get placed within 2, which placed him there. He's unfortunately facing away from his target just because the parking meter on his base is a little awkward. Apologies for that. So he's facing the wrong way because he did attack Emma Frost, but not before applying Gamma Drain to her, which is a fun card when it comes into focus. There we go. During Mortal Hulk's activation, he can play this card. Choose an enemy character within 2. They gain a Gamma Drain token. He places it on one of their active or reactive superpowers, whatever, you know, those symbols. Whenever they use it, he gains power equal to the power spent. He put it on Diamond form. So anytime Emma Frost Diamond forms, he gains 1 power. Then he used 1 action to get over here because he moved and then Gamma leapt. So he decided to just do his basic 7 dice punch into Emma Frost. Of course, she only has 2 physical defense on her undiamond side, or form, so she changed forms for 1 power, meaning that a Mortal Hulk got that 1 power, and he smacked her right in the teeth for 6 damage. So her diamond form meant nothing, and she is dazed. So Emma Frost having a very unfortunate poor turn there really cost him at the end there. Now that probably wouldn't have changed what happened there, but if she'd been able to at least daze Moon Knight, that would have been 2 points that they wouldn't have scored. Pardon me, that they wouldn't have scored at the end of the round. So speaking of which, we're going to scoring now. So before we get into the point scoring at the end of Battle Round 2, did forget to mention that during Mortal Hulk's turn, before he abandoned his post, he did pay 1 to interact with it to heal 1 damage off of the Extremist console over there. So, after a lot of characters have dazed, Iron Fist is dazed, Honey Badger is dazed, Emma Frost is dazed, Storm is dazed, there was still quite a bit of point scoring going on. For the Midnight Suns, they have 3 of the cube fragments, 2 on Moon Knight, 1 on Immortal Hulk, which means the Moon Knight's taking 2 damage, Hulk's taking 1, but they gain 3 victory points, and they also hold this console. So they gain 4, taking them up to 8. The Uncanny X-Men have 1 of the other cube fragments on Colossus. The other one is on the floor behind him, unfortunately, so he won't be able to pick it up until next turn, unless Iron Fist gets there first. So they gained 1 for that, and they hold 2 consoles. They hold the one that Colossus is holding, and Cyclops is the only person contesting that one back there. So that puts them up to 6. So they're now trailing by 2 instead of trailing by 1. Uncanny X-Men still have first activation though as we go into round 3. A lot of people flipping their cards, a lot of damage being dealt. Let's see what happens. So there was a lot of choices about what the Uncanny X-Men could do for their first activation in round 3, and they very stupidly went with Emma Frost, thinking that her bad luck surely couldn't continue across more activations. She activated, she was in her diamond form, she did her diamond strike on Moon Knight twice, and the first result was the rather spectacular 4 shields 1 wild, which he deftly blocked with a wild and 2 crits of his own, and then she did another one and got 2 skulls, 2 blanks and a shield. So I think Emma Frost just threw the game across those 2 activations for the Uncanny X-Men. She has to turn back to normal form if she starts her activation as diamond form. She stayed within 1 to at least contest a little bit, but yeah, that's certainly a couple of activations that have existed. And the first activation of Battle Round 3 for the Midnight Suns was Moon Knight, and he was a bit of a coward, but he rolled the perfect result to do this on his multiple personality rolls. He rolled a crit, which means he gets a 3rd action that has to be a move action. So he paid 1 to interact with the Extremist console to heal himself for 1 power. He then did 3 movement actions to run away all the way back into the back line here, where he paid 1 more power to interact with this Extremist console, because you can interact with each objective once per turn, and healed off of that as well. So he's only got 1 damage on himself now, and he's hiding back there with 2 cube fragments. Now Cyclops could move up, but he's got to get within range 3 thanks to that stealth. I had no idea Moon Knight's stealth would be so pivotal in this game. That plus Emma, messing up. I feel like I called her Emma Stone at some point instead of Emma Frost. If I did, apologies. Either way, that's Midnight's activation, done. So next up for the Uncanny X-Men was Colossus. At least he's carrying his weight now. He spent a total of 2 power, 1 to pick up the cube fragment that had been sitting behind him, so he's holding 2 now. He paid to interact with the console to heal himself for 1. And then for his actual actions, he clobbered Iron Fist twice, just with his basic strike, which now can also drain power with concussive on wilds. He only did that in the first punch. Iron Fist is on 10 power, so he doesn't care much. So he did 2 damage with that first punch. The second one was fully blocked. Blade was up next for the Midnight Suns, however we do have to correct something that is quite important. I wonder if anyone else spotted it already. When Blade did Night of the Damned Fear, it includes a medium move when it's resolved, so he could absolutely have contested this Extremist console against Cyclops. Couldn't have claimed it, it'd be 1-all on healthy characters, but it does deny the X-Men a score, so they're actually on 5, not 6. Nothing else has changed here, so we can apply that correction now that we've noticed. Speaking of Night of the Damned Fear, he started, Blade that is, started by doing that into Cyclops and hitting him for a massive 5 damage of his 6 health, I think, on his healthy side, and applying bleed. He then tried to do a basic fall, and he used the medium move this time to actually move. He then did a basic strike with his katana attack, at which point Honey Badger stepped in and said, "Nah, I'm your target," by spending 2 on Too Dangerous to Ignore. She took 2 damage and is also bleeding as a result of the attack. She had 1 success in her defense, which he pierced through. So, at the end of Blade's activation, he is contesting the Extremist console here. He healed 2, so he's got 1 damage on him, gained 2 power as well, because they've both got the bleed condition. And Cyclops is going to have to shake that bleed, unless he doesn't mind dazing when he finishes. Well, Cyclops tried to make a difference by activating and doing not 1 but 2 optic devastations directly into Blade's face. The first one got him for 3 and drained 1 power thanks to concussive. The second one did 0 damage but did also drain 1 power from concussive. So Blade is on his feet. With the 1 damage he had left on him, he's got 2 health left. And in order to keep Scott on his feet, he is playing Children of the Atom. Sorry, I can't help it. Up and Atom. So that is an Uncanny X-Men character may play this card, remove all special conditions from this character, and gain 1 power for each special condition removed this way. He removed the bleed, so he gained 1 power, and more importantly, now that his activation's over, doesn't just fall over dazed. Well, you knew it was coming sooner or later. Iron Fist activated, and of course used the Iron Fist on Colossus. Because he had an activated token, it just does a stagger on him, which is pretty nice. Also does do a throw. He's not immune to throws, he's just immune to pushes. So he did get chucked away eventually, small. But it only did 2 damage. His metal organic skin then reduced that down to 1. So Colossus only took 1 damage from all that, and Iron Fist opted not to use his second action. So at least Colossus feels like how he should. He should be tanky, and he feels it, especially if he takes 8 or 9 dice to the face and takes 1 damage when it's all said and done. Now that we've had a good track record of the Iron Fist and doing a lot of damage here. But to rub a little salt in the wound, Siege of Darkness was cracked out at that point. Any number of Midnight Sun characters can spend 2 to play this card. They can do a 0 cost attack. Blade and Immortal Hulk spent 2 power each. Blade tried to do a katana attack into Cyclops, at which point Honey Badger had to pay for Too Dangerous to Ignore. She took the hit. 2 damage unfortunately means that with the 2 damage she had already, she is out of there. And as she died, she heard Scott whisper, "I wish you were X-23. She spent her entire existence taking hits for that man. And that's the respect she gets as she dies. So she's out of there, but it does mean that Scott is surviving the turn on his healthy side, which I guess is worth it. Hulk did his basic 7 dice strike into Storm. He got the throw proc this time on his basic attack, so he chucked her away small and did 2 damage to her. Not super huge, but he still gets to have a full turn. So Storm is the last activation for the Uncanny X-Men in Battle Round 3, and thanks to being chucked back here and knowing that she doesn't really have that much of a chance against full health Immortal Hulk, or 1 damage Immortal Hulk, she moved medium over here and then paid for Eye of the Storm to add 2 dice to a basic lightning bolt, putting it at 6. Shot it into Blade, and Blade doesn't like energy because he can't pay for rerolls against that, much like Honey Badger doesn't like Mystic, and he kept on hitting her with Mystic katanas. 2 damage means that Blade is dazed, so Honey Badger's sacrifice did pay off because that means Scott is the only one holding that objective. Immortal Hulk could technically get over there, but he'd have to use his whole turn plus Gamma Leap, so either way it's 1 point. But it's over to the Immortal Hulk to end off the round. Well, Immortal Hulk activated, and over the course of his 2 actions obliterated Miss Frost from existence. She did end up down here. Started with his basic punch, she diamond formed to get 4 dice to defend against it instead of 2. Took 2 damage from that. It has an optional throw, he didn't opt to use that, but he then spent on his big attack 5 power, I think it is, for Gamma Burst. Includes a small throw, the target doesn't gain power for it, it's 10 dice, and that did 7 to her. Threw her over here really just out of spite because it didn't matter, she was already long dead. So Miss Frost, who has let her team down, is now off the table, and Immortal Hulk is uncontested holding that the Extremist console, which he also paid 1 to interact with to heal himself back to full health. So the end of Battle Round 3, thanks to, well, basically thanks to Emma Frost, we've reached the end of the game. Points wise, the Midnight Suns score 3 for the cubes, 2 on Moon Knight, 1 on Immortal Hulk. They hold 3 of the Extremist consoles, 1, 2, and 3, meaning that they get up to 14, which obviously isn't the 16 required to win, but we'll get to that in a second. The Uncanny X-Men, they have a cube fragment, they have 2, the other 2 cube fragments on Colossus, so they score 2 for that, and they hold this back Extremist console thanks to Storm taking out Blade. So they gain 3, which did take them to 8. Now, all that needs to happen in a final round is Moon Knight lives. He's got 2 cube fragments on him, so even if someone was to run up there that's on their healthy side, which would have to be Cyclops, and 2 medium moves would get him there, he's still scoring the 2 they need to win from the cube fragments he's holding. Cyclops couldn't move up and shoot him because of stealth, and also he doesn't have charge, he has hit and run, doesn't have anything else that would force, he could force people to move towards him, thanks to Me My X-Men, but that's no good because he's too far up the table. Colossus could obviously contest over there, he's probably going to hold on to both his cube fragments, so they could very easily score 4 or 5 points themselves, or at least deny 1 and score 4, but that would only take them up to 12. As I say, nothing else, if nothing else down here is scored, as long as Moon Knight is untouched, it doesn't matter, because he's scoring at least 2 or 3 if he holds the point as well. So there's no way to stop the Midnight Suns winning at this point, thanks to Emma Frost, and, well, Honey Badger saved Cyclops, so she did the right thing, I think, but Emma Frost having 2 turns of rolling just, well, you saw the rolls. That was the thing that cost them. So we are going to call it there with a Midnight Suns victory. So we've already kind of gone over the flow of the game and some of the changes as we went, but here's just some final thoughts. Obviously, with Immortal Hulk being added to the Midnight Suns roster, it's a total game changer for them. He's exceptionally difficult to deal with. The only damage he took there was from the cube fragments, but he was just smashing people. That's what he's for. He hurts people a lot. Taking advantage of Siege of Darkness with him for just a free 7 dice physical attack at some point at range 2 with a throw is also really powerful. So he's just difficult to deal with, full stop. But as far as the rebalanced X-Men cards go, Colossus, a couple of subtle changes as we mentioned, but they are very significant in making him feel like he is worth 4 threat. He felt tanky, that could have just been luck from not getting hit harder by the Iron Fist, but that medium move is great, and not being able to get pushed just in general is nice. Also kind of, it fits with the Indomitable card, which has him on it. So it's just, that makes him feel more like he is worth what he's costing. I think on his flip side he has 1 more health now as well. He's got 7 health on his flip side. I don't remember if that's what it was before, but either way, he felt more worth it. Speaking of which, Cyclops with that new affiliation bonus, I think it's new, in a way of the dishing out power in a range 5 if you successfully land an attack. It's just a nice little bonus. It plays into Cyclops' whole, well, old Cyclops' old thing of teamwork being key. So it fits the theme. It's very thematic for how he leads or led the X-Men. So that's great. And in general, with the what was it called? Speed of Sight. The speed of sight on his basic attack, a wild and a hit equaling a free extra attack built in when it's a 5 dice base energy with push. That's great as well. Again, it helps make him feel like he's worth his 4 threat, because before it didn't really. Storm's card is updated, but I think her affiliation bonus just got the wording clarified or slightly nerfed, I'm not sure. I think that's the only thing that changed on her. She didn't really get to do much, although she was pivotal in dazing Blade at the end there. Beyond these X-Men that we saw on the table today, Wolverine got slightly rebalanced. It was mostly the X-Force, I think, was the rest of the mutants that got rebalanced, like Cable, etc. So I think that's it for the core X-Men. I might be forgetting someone offhand, but definitely the changes to the stat cards that are available in a free PDF until they bring out a card pack, use them. It has vastly improved the characters. They couldn't swing it today, largely because Immortal Hulk is just ridiculously powerful. He's so cool though. How can you hate him when he's so cool? Look at him over there. It's one of my favourite models they've done. Anyway, that is going to do it for this time. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. Please do remember to share support, and if you would like to go above and beyond to support these videos and this channel in general, please consider becoming a channel member or pressing that thanks button. It's all reinvested in the channel, it all helps out. And on that note, with the help of channel members, we are going to be able to cover the new starter box. It will arrive at some point, a little behind everyone else, but it does mean we'll get the new tokens, we'll get the new models, we'll be able to talk about them and see them. Looking forward to it very much, and I hope you are too. Enjoy the rest of your day, and see you next time. Ta for now.